In this video, I'm going to show you how I turned this area under my staircase into a coffee nook and doghouse. I wanted to create an arched opening in this nook to go with the arch I built in my dining room turned office. First, I measured the width of the door and created 2 half arches to go on each upper side of the opening. I cut the arched pieces out of 1/2 inch plywood and put cut pieces of 2x4s in between. I screwed those into both sides of the upper entrance and taped up the transition from the drywall to the arch with joint tape. Then I cut a piece of drywall the same width as the width of the opening and scored it. I screwed it into the arch with drywall screws. I put corner beading around the corners. Next, I mixed hot mud and applied several layers of that to my arch, letting it dry and sanding it in between layers. Since I wanted to tile the back of the coffee bar, I used my oscillating tool to cut out the drywall. This revealed a lot of unused space beneath the staircase. I decided to make a doghouse and storage space out of this. I used my oscillating tool to cut out an opening at the bottom of the slope that I could turn into a doghouse. I had to remove the trim here as well to open that space, which I also did with my oscillating tool. I used a pry bar to pry out the quarter round and baseboard, then finished cutting the drywall, following the lines of the existing 2x4s in that space. I used 2x4s to create a wall at the far end of the slope, which I later moved to a little bit further at the end of the slope. Since I wanted to tile the whole doghouse, I had to use Durock instead of drywall to close up that space. I scored the Durock with a special scoring knife designed for this and used Durock screws to screw that into the 2x4s. I was initially going to close the rest of the space under the staircase in, but then I decided to make a storage space out of the space above the vent. I used the same technique to do this as with the doghouse, cutting out a hole in the drywall to create the opening to the storage space. I didn't have an outlet in the coffee bar, so I added an outlet by pigtailing the one that I have in the dining room and adding that to the new one. Now, I'm not an electrician, so definitely consult with a licensed electrician over me if you're trying to do this. But for this, I screwed in an electric box to the wall. I turned off the breaker to the dining room outlets and double checked that the power was off before removing the wires from the outlet. I drilled holes in the studs to feed in a new wire towards the dining room outlet. I wired those together, creating pigtails to connect the old outlet. Then I connected the new wires to a new outlet. Moving back to the doghouse, I applied tape to the Durock seams and used a putty knife to apply thin set into the seams and screw holes. I also applied thin set to the floor and used a notched trowel to create grooves in the thin set. I put several sheets of Durock over this and screwed them into the floor. While the thin set was drying, I framed out the bottom of my cabinet with 2x4s and screwed this into the existing studs. Then I screwed a plywood board to the roof of my doghouse. I later cut down additional pieces of plywood to create slots in the roof and added LED lights in between the slots, but unfortunately I forgot to film this step. However, I will show you the finished result at the end of the video. Next, it was time for the tiling. I wanted to use the Liege tile for both the doghouse and the coffee bar. For the coffee bar, I picked these triangle mosaic tiles. They came preset on a mesh sheet, but when I soaked them in water, the tiles all separated from the mesh, so I had to install them one by one. This made for a very time-consuming process of applying mastic and tiling, but slowly I got it done. Now these Liege tiles are handmade and they're meant to have imperfections and variations in sizing and thickness, so don't come at me in the comments saying that they're uneven. I wiped off the tiles and let them dry. In the meantime, I painted the trim and door of the coffee bar with this burgundy color. For the walls, I used a similar technique of mixing joint compound with paint as I did for the dining room. If you haven't seen that video, don't forget to check it out as well. I mixed this with a drill and mixer and applied it to the walls with a roller brush. Then I used a putty knife and moved it in different directions to create a Roman clay-like look. I put grout on the tiles and wiped the excess off after it dried. I built the cabinets for this coffee bar in the same exact way as the ones for my office. I also made the top in the same way, with the exception of adding an extension cord to the top of the table before applying the Henry's feather finish. I'll link my office cabinet video here for more detailed step-by-step information on how I did this. I did the tiling for the doghouse the same way as for the coffee bar, just using different tiles. I also added trim around the doghouse and painted the walls brown in preparation for another project that I'll be doing. Finally, I added a push-to-open door to the storage cabinet. I also framed and built my own vent opening flush with the wall, but since this video is already getting quite long and the footage for these steps didn't turn out great, I'll show you how to build a similar vent in a future video. Let me know what you think down in the comments, and see you in my next video.